So how was my September? September was another interesting month, second month of the channel, and I am still unemployed. For the month of September, I had not that much to do, so I was very productive on the channel. First of all, what did I read? I read this. I didn't actually read this. I finished this. This was, I think, about 80% at the end of August. I finished Memories of Ice as my first book this month. It's still, again, maybe my favorite Malazan novel. It's a pretty stunning book. A hell of a lot happens, a hell of a lot comes together. We learn a fair bit more about the world. It's just an excellent book. If you've been enjoying Malazan, if you've read the first two books, have a look at my review for this. It's such a good book. Loved it. Then I finished what's available for the Black Iron Legacy by Gareth Hanrahan. The Broken Gods, the third book. There's a fourth and a fifth coming, but they're not out yet, and it sounds like it may take a while. This was... I didn't get as into this as I did the first book, but this is definitely good. It's worth reading all three. I recommend it. I won't be doing a review for this. I've kind of decided that for reviews of series, I might only do the first book as a review and then maybe do an overall series review once it's finished. And then for books I really want to talk about, like Malazan, I'll be doing spoiler discussion kinds of getting into the themes and my thoughts on things in the books. So this one, no review, but it's good. Then it was back to Malazan, and in a way, I feel like I cheated, but technically this is the way to read it. I'm reading concurrent publication order. So there's books by Stephen Erickson, there's books by Ian C. Esselmont, and there's the main 10 books, and then there's a bunch of other things that fall in different places. And I put a novella in this time. This is one of the first novella that was published, a story about Balcalan and Corbel Brooch. And so it's not this whole book, it's actually only this much of it. This book is 3 novellas, and then there's another book which has 3 novellas, all about Balcalan and Corbel Brooch. It was a lot of fun. I feel like I cheated because it was only 115 pages. So I read it basically in one sitting. And the reason I did that instead of moving on to a chunkier Malazan book is so that I could get on with starting John Gwyn's Malice. There will be a review up soon, if it's not already up. I really enjoyed this, but it was a bit of a challenge, to be honest. Coming from Erickson's books with very, not flowery styling, but more complicated writing, where a lot of things suggest things, where you have to make a lot of jumps in your head and you have to put a lot of things together to really get the full, deepest meaning out of it. John Gwyn's writing is much simpler. It's much more direct. It's much more minimal in a way. And the story, in a lot of ways, at least so far in this book, is a lot more straightforward than what you get in Malazan. So at the beginning, I was thinking, do I really want to finish this? By about the middle of it, I was hooked. And I really got into the story, and I raced through the last half of it quite quickly, and I'm eager to get on with the rest. I also read the first 2 books in the Vinland Saga, or at least the first 2 collected hardbacks. I'm still not sure about Vinland Saga, to be honest. They were enjoyable, but kind of as I expected. There are a lot of things in manga, not these manga specifically, but manga in general. There are a lot of things that are very much standard cultural references for Japanese comics, manga, which are not so much in Western comics. And they kind of irritate me. And they're not super present in the Vinland Saga, but they are present, and they did kind of irritate me. There's enough going on around those things being overblown exaggerated facial expressions, the kind of weird way that female characters are portrayed, mostly just the exaggeration and the occasional really juvenile humor. Even though it's a serious and violent story about revenge, there's just these weird bits of humor thrown in places that feel to me totally inappropriate and not fitting the story. But I'm enjoying it enough, I decided to give it a go for the first arc, which I'm told is the first 4 books. So I've finished 1, I'm almost finished with 2, and I have 3 and 4 on the way. So I'll be reading those in October. And I jumped the gun a little bit on my planned Oztober reads. Because I finished Malice with 3 or 4 days to go in September, and I wasn't meant to start The Counselor until the beginning of October, the next other option would have been a very chunky Malazan book, House of Chains. So instead, I just started early on my Oztober TBR. I jumped into The Counselor. The Counselor is excellent. I loved it. It's something that I'll explain in my review video, which should be out pretty soon. It was a unique reading experience, which I really, really enjoyed. And it was something very, very different. And it's a duology, unfortunately. The second book is not out. I think it's meant to come out next year. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to it a lot because E.J. Beaton's writing, the style, the flavor, the poetry of her writing was super enjoyable. And I raced through this a lot faster than I planned. So that technically counts as a September read, but it's also part of my Oztober reads because E.J. Beaton is Australian. September was also the beginning of collaboration for my channel. I had always seen other people doing live chats and recorded chats with each other with a group of people. And it's one of the things I really, really wanted to do on my channel. I didn't want to start too early. I wanted to get things sort of solidified and figure out how it works. But I managed to be in 3 different chats with people in September. AP Canavan very spontaneously invited me to a chat about the Rings of Power. We had some disagreements and we wanted to record a civil conversation about differing opinions on something that a lot of people are screaming at each other about. And that was a lot of fun. Thank you, AP. I scheduled my first Friends on Books. This is a series I want to do. I want to do at least one a month. And the very first one was with AP Canavan again, and Philip Chase, and Josh from Red Fury Books. It was originally planned as a Malazan chat because I had finished the first 3 books of the Malazan Book of the Fallen. And I wanted to do it kind of as greybeards on books. So Philip Chase, AP Canavan, me, and Iskar Jarak. And Iskar has been kind of offline. I'm not sure what's going on with him. I hope he's doing well. But he wasn't replying to any of my contact attempts. So I checked with Mike from Mike's Book Reviews, who's also read Malazan and also has a grey beard, at least sometimes. And he was very busy. And then Jimmy Nuts agreed to come on, not as a grey beard, obviously as a young, fresh face versus 3 grey beards. And he had to cancel because of last-minute family stuff. So Josh sprung into the breach at the very last minute, which I really appreciate. Thank you, Josh. And we had a great chat. We chatted for 2.5 hours, and it could have been probably 3.5 or 4, except we all would have been exhausted and it would have been very late here. But we had an excellent chat. The next Friends on Books is already scheduled. It's going to be with Joanna, with Jordan from Jordan Reads and Tori from Tori Talks. So I thought the first Friends on Books was a bit of a sausage fest. So this time I invited only ladies, and we're all very excited about it. That's going to be next weekend on the 8th of October. Should be on the channel now, so you can set the notify me if you want. The other thing I did is I did my first author interview with Gareth Hanrahan, who wrote the Black Iron Legacy series and is still working on them for books 4 and 5 coming out in the future. We had a great chat. We were only slightly interrupted by his daughter waking up, but he proved to be an extremely sympathetic and nice guy. I really appreciate, with such a small channel as mine, that he took the time to give me a nice long chat and talk about the really interesting world and writing that he's been creating. So some thoughts on the channel so far. I've been kind of experimenting with videos. I realized pretty early on I had some ideas that were maybe a bit stupid, but just from watching BookTube and lots of people's channels, it's easy to get the idea that you must do a TBR and you must do a bookshelf review or tour, and you must do this and you must do that. And I kind of ticked those off of my list early on as my first couple of videos, some of them. And after a while I was like, yeah, actually, you know, I don't have to do anything. I can just do the things that I think are interesting and fun. And I've been kind of curious and going back and forth with different ideas. Of course, I'm going to keep reviewing books, but I decided I'm only going to review the first book in a series usually, and then maybe do that as spoiler-free, and then do spoiler deeper thoughts, discussions on the series, things that come up in the series, characters, themes, whatever. I put out a video yesterday, which was the top 10 swords in fantasy, which was kind of a frivolous throwaway idea. And it proves what top 10 lists do on BookTube. That video in the last 24 hours has gotten more views than 3/4 or 2/3 of all of the videos I've ever done. Not together, but individually. It's gotten already like 250 views in 24 hours, which isn't that much if you're a big channel, but I'm a pretty small channel still. So from now on, I will only be doing lists of swords. It's also interesting to me, I have been doing this for about 6 weeks, I think. And as of right now, I've got 275 subscribers, which is pretty cool. I think that's fast. I'm not really sure. I've never done this before. I don't know how this works, but 275 in 6 weeks seems to be fast. So thank you if you've subscribed. If you haven't subscribed, why the hell not? Also, what's interesting to me is when you start doing a YouTube channel, you get some analytics, some statistics about what's going on. And I had never really thought about it before, but most of you watching, or the majority, the largest number of you watching, are online on Monday evening my time. So Monday around 7 p.m. or 8 p.m. Monday seems to be a super popular day for watching BookTube videos. You're between 25 and 45, which is not surprising to me at all. Much younger than 25 isn't probably going to watch an old guy making videos, and much older than 45 or 50 is probably not watching YouTube that much. And I haven't been doing this that long, but I've been doing it now long enough to totally see what all of the booktubers say. Reviews don't really do that well. So reviewing one book in depth with 10, 15, 20-minute videos doesn't seem to get a whole lot of views. Doing a quick list, 10 minutes, 10 books, or 10 fantasy swords, seems to be a really quick way to get a lot of views. And it's funny, when you do something like this, you put a lot of energy into it, a lot of time. There's shooting, which I'm doing now. There's then editing, which I'll do tomorrow. It can be a bit of an investment. And you do it because you want to share your passion with other people. And it feels like I'm obviously not getting any money for this. The payment is attention. The payment is engagement, communication, people leaving comments or wanting to engage in a discussion about something that I love. So, of course, in that respect, more people seems like a good thing. But it also seems like a bit of a trap, worrying too much about subscriptions and numbers and all of that sort of stuff. It's hard for me to ignore it, to be honest, but it's also something I don't want to chase that. So yeah, okay, top 10 fantasy swords seems to be a really popular video. That's cool. I'm not going to start doing a lot of top 10 videos or videos about fantasy swords. That was an experiment. I thought it might be something that would click with a lot of people, and apparently it is. And I'm not sure what that means for future going forward. But the main thing I want to do is reviews. If I can get you to read a really awesome book that you might not have read otherwise, or tell you about a book you never heard of that you end up loving, that would be the biggest reward for me. That would be the thing I would enjoy the most. And that would be the thing that would make me feel like this channel is successful, more than having 10 million subscribers. So that's about it for September. For October, go back and look at my Oztober video. If you haven't seen it already, I will be reading only Australian authors. So Malazan, the Malaz Everything Re/Read is on hold for now. And this month, I will only be reading Australian authors. First up, which I already did, was The Counselor by E.J. Beaton. Next up, which I started this morning, is City of Lies by Sam Hawke. Next after that, The Shadow of What Was Lost by James Islington. And then Empire of the Vampire by J. Christoph. Those are my Australian authors. I've been told of one more in case I get through these early. I may grab one more, but we'll see about that in the future. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're reading awesome books, and I'll see you next time.